Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Learn English Through History. It is so good to have you here today. Find a comfortable spot. Take a slow breath. I am glad we are together. I have a very special story for you today. Now I want you to imagine something. It is April 1972. You are sitting in a grand theater in Los Angeles, California. The lights go down. A small old man walks slowly onto the stage. He is 82 years old. His hair is white. His steps are careful. And then something unexpected happens. The whole room stands up, every single person. And they do not stop clapping. They clap for 12 minutes. Some people are crying. You look at the faces around you. Everyone is crying. You do not know who this man is yet, but you can feel it. This moment means something. This moment cost something. His name was Charlie Chaplin, and this is his story. Before we begin, if you are new here, this channel tells the stories of the people who changed history, and we tell them in simple, clear English. Perfect for learners like you. Please subscribe so you never miss a story. Now, let us go back to the beginning. The year was 1889. The place was Lambeth. Lambeth was one of the poorest parts of London, England. Streets were dirty. The houses were small and crowded. The people were tired. It was not a place of dreams. It was the place where Charlie Chaplin was born. April 16, 1889. His father was a singer. His mother, Hannah, was a singer too. She had a beautiful voice. She performed in small music halls around London. She wore nice dresses on stage. She made people smile. At home, she tried very hard to take care of Charlie and his half-brother Sidney. But life was not easy. His father drank too much. He was not kind. He was not there. Soon he was gone. Hannah was alone with two small boys and very little money. Charlie watched his mother work. He watched her sing. He watched her come home tired and still find a way to smile at him. He loved her very much. But then something terrible happened. Hannah's voice began to fail. A singer without a voice is like a bird that cannot fly. She could not perform. She could not earn money. The family fell deeper and deeper into poverty. They moved from room to room. Sometimes they had almost no food. Charlie was hungry. He was cold. He wore the same clothes every day. When Charlie was 7 years old, the worst thing happened. Hannah became very sick, not just in her body. Her mind began to fail too. She could not think clearly. She did not always know where she was. The government sent her to Cane Hill Asylum. That is a hospital for people with mental illness. Charlie starts outside as they took her away. He was 7 years old. He did not fully understand what was happening. He only knew his mother was gone. Charlie and Sidney were sent to the Hanwell School's workhouse. A workhouse was a place for very poor children. The children worked every day. They cleaned, they washed, they got very little food. The rooms were cold, the rules were hard. It was not a home. It was not even close to a home. But even in this dark time, something special happened. Charlie discovered something inside himself. When the other boys were sad, he made them laugh. He made funny faces. He walked in a silly way, told small jokes. The boys laughed, and for a few seconds, the workhouse disappeared. Charlie felt something warm move through him. He felt needed. He felt alive. He did not know it yet, but he had just found the gift that would change the world. Charlie left the workhouse as a young boy. He was thin. He was small. He had almost no education. Most people looked at him and saw nothing. But Charlie looked at the world and saw a stage. He began performing on the streets of London. He danced. I did comic walks. He made faces at passing strangers. Sometimes people dropped a coin, sometimes they did not. But Charlie kept going. When he was around 14 years old, something happened that changed everything. He was given a small role in a theater production. The play was called Sherlock Holmes. Charlie played Billy, a young page boy. It was not a big role. But Charlie was on a real stage. It was in front of a real audience. And he felt something he had never felt before. He felt completely right, as if the stage was the one place in the world where he belonged. After Sherlock Holmes, Charlie joined a group of traveling performers. They were called the Fred Karno Company. Fred Karno made comedy shows. His performers traveled all over England. They performed in small theaters and large ones. They worked very hard. They slept in cheap hotels. They ate simple food. But they performed every night. Charlie learned everything. Watch the other performers carefully. He studied how to move his body. He studied how to house his face. He learned that sometimes no words are needed. Sometimes the body speaks better than words. Sometimes silence is the loudest thing in the room. Charlie was very good at silence. The audiences in England loved him. He was small and thin. But on stage he was powerful. He could make a whole room laugh without saying a single word. But life was still difficult. Charlie earned very little. The work was hard. Some nights were very cold. Some nights the audience was small. Charlie was always tired. But something was about to change. In 1910, the Fred Karno Company was invited to tour America. Charlie was chosen to go. He was 21 years old. I had never left England before. He stood on the ship and looked at the ocean. He did not know what was waiting for him on the other side. But he was ready to find out. America was loud. America was fast. America was enormous. Charlie arrived in New York City, and everything felt different. The buildings were taller than anything he had ever seen. The streets were full of people, moving in every direction. Everything was bigger, brighter, louder. Charlie felt very small, like that boy again, the boy from Lambeth. But he did not give up. He performed with the Karno Company across America, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, dozens of cities. American audiences loved him. They laughed at his physical comedy. They loved his energy. They loved how a small, thin man could fill a stage with just his body and his face. Then, in November 1913, a man named Mack Sennett came to see Charlie perform. Mack Sennett made silent comedy films in Los Angeles. He had his own studio. It was called Keystone. He saw something in Charlie that night. Something special. Something the camera would love. After the show, Mack Sennett found Charlie backstage. He made him an offer. Come to Hollywood. Make movies. $175 every week. Charlie thought about it. Then he said yes. He arrived at Keystone Studios in January 1914. He walked onto the lot and looked around. Cameras, lights, actors, director shouting, everyone moving fast. Charlie felt lost. His first few films were not very good. In theater, you act big so the people at the back can see you. But in film, the camera is close. You must be smaller, more natural, more real. Charlie had to learn everything again. Then one afternoon, the director needed Charlie on set fast. Go find a costume, he said. Something funny. Make it quick. Charlie ran to the dressing room. He looked at the racks of clothes. He grabbed a jacket that was too small, trousers that were too big, shoes that were enormous, a small bowler hat, a bamboo cane. He found a piece of costume hair and pressed Attorney Square mustache under his nose. He looked in the mirror, and something happened, something magical. A new person was looking back at him. A little man, poor but proud, sad but funny, small but brave, a man with a good heart and bad luck. Charlie walked out onto the set. Everyone stopped. Then Thea started to laugh. The character was perfect. He was called the Tramp. The Tramp became the most famous character in the history of cinema. In every film, the Tramp had no money and no home. But he always tried to do the right thing. He helped people. He fell in love. He fought bullies. He made people laugh. But he also made them cry. People everywhere saw themselves in him. Everyone knows what it feels like to be small. Everyone knows what it feels like to struggle. But the Tramp never stopped walking, and that gave people hope. Charlie's salary told the whole story. In 1915, he moved from Keystone to a new company called S&A. His new salary, on $1,250 every week, plus a bonus of $10,000. The year before, he had been earning $175. In 1916, he moved again. His new salary at the Mutual Film Corporation, $10,000 every week, plus $150,000 bonus. Poor boy from Lambeth was becoming one of the highest paid people on earth. By 1919, Charlie Chaplin was not just famous. He was the most famous person on earth. A category that barely existed before him. Children knew his face. Kings knew his name. Rich people and poor people. In every country, in every language, allured at the same small man with the same funny walk. Charlie had given the world something it did not know it needed. But Charlie wanted more than just laughs. In 1919, Charlie did something extraordinary. I sat down with 3 other legends: Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, D.W. Griffith. Together they made a decision. They were not going to work for other people anymore. They were going to build their own studio. They called it United Artists. They owned it. They controlled it. No one could tell them what to make. No one could rush them. No one could take their work away from them. The poor boy who once owned nothing now owned everything created. Charlie used that freedom well. In 1921, he made a film called The Kid. It was about the tramp who finds a small child on the streets and raises him as his own son. The film was funny, but it was also deeply sad. When the boy is taken away from the tramp by the government, the audience cried. It was one of the first films ever to mix comedy and deep emotion. The whole world went to see it. Then in 1925 came the gold rush. Then in 1931 came City Lights. By now, every other film in Hollywood had sound. Actors talked, singers sang. But Charlie refused. He believed the body and the face could say more than words ever could. He made City Lights as a silent film in a world that had moved to sound. Everyone said he was wrong. Everyone said audiences would not watch a silent film anymore. Charlie did not listen. City Lights became one of the greatest films ever made. People still watch it today. He is not tall. He does not look powerful. But inside his mind, something is always burning. A fire, a dream, a question. He wants to know why the world treats small people so badly. He wants to know why poverty is allowed to exist. He wants to know why one man can make millions suffer. And then in 1940, Charlie answered those questions on screen. The Great Dictator. It was Charlie's first film with spoken words. He played two characters, a gentle Jewish barber and a cruel dictator who looked just like Adolf Hitler. At the end of the film, the barber gives a speech about kindness, about freedom, about humanity. The film cost $2,200,000 to make. It earned $5 million around the world. But the money was not the point. The point was the message. And the message was heard. But here is something remarkable. The same man who moved the world was about to be pushed out of it. It was 1952. Charlie Chaplin was 63 years old. He had lived in America for nearly 40 years. He had made his greatest work there. He had built his studio there. He had raised his children there. America was his home. He had never become an American citizen, but America was still his home. That year, Charlie boarded a ship. He was sailing to England for the opening of his new film, Limelight. He stood on the deck and watched New York disappear behind him. He did not know it yet, but he would not see it again for 20 years. While Charlie was at sea, the American government made a decision. They cancelled his visa. They said he could not return, not until he answered questions about his political beliefs. This was the time of Senator Joseph McCarthy.